God bless you and welcome to another edition of Your Vote, Your Voice, Your Vote. And I'm just excited today because last week we had such a great turnout and people were talking and we're exciting. We're getting people excited about voting. And here we go again, part two. I'm so glad you joined us. Part two is going to be more of the same. We're trying to drive this thing home. We got 2 weeks from today before election day, and we'll be at the polls wondering who will win. Well, let's make a difference. Let's get out there and vote. Exercise your privilege to vote. I've got some stats and things I'm going to share with you, but we're talking about why it's important to vote and how voting can make a difference. And so, the question is asked, why is it important? Why? Because you make the difference. Let me see. I got to go over some stats because some of us don't believe my vote counts. You don't believe your vote counts. You don't believe your vote matters, but it matters. Listen, you don't have to tell any. There's certain people in the world you don't ever have to tell them to vote. They vote every single time, no matter what's going on. It could be rain, sleet, or snow. But us, we don't do that. Why? We're lazy. Get off your. Come on, let's go. Get out of that chair. Get out of your house. Let's go vote. Listen, it's very important. I'm yelling at you right now because I'm trying to just get your attention. I'm going to calm down in just a second. But the difference, I need you to hear this. Black voters, I got to talk to you specifically right now because the difference between the candidates in the presidential election in 2016, watch this. I got to talk about my place first. I live in Detroit. I got to talk about Detroit first. Detroit, in Michigan, the two candidates, the difference in their votes was 11,000 votes. 11,000. Think about it. You say, oh, wow, that's a lot. No. In Detroit alone, 277,000 Black voters didn't vote. 277,000 against 11,000, the difference. We can't let things like that means we're not participating in what's going on. We got to get involved. In Florida, there was $113,000 vote difference, 113,000 vote difference. In Miami alone, 379,000 Black people didn't vote. What are you doing out there? Listen, we making a difference. All we got to do is do our part. You do your part, I'm going to do my part. It's going to add up. It adds up like dollars, like pennies, like dollars. Like, come on, it adds up. Wisconsin, 23,000 vote difference. In Milwaukee alone, 93,000 Blacks didn't vote. Come on, I'm going to give you the rest of the set because they've been talking about Pennsylvania like crazy out there. So Pennsylvania had 44,000 votes, the difference in the two candidates. In Philadelphia alone, Philly cheesesteaks, Philly, the urban area, 238,000 Black voters didn't vote. And in Georgia, which they think they can take all the time, one party thinks they can take it all the time. In Georgia, there was a difference of 211,000 votes. In Atlanta, come on, Hot Atlanta, what do you say, ATL, whatever you call it, 530,000 Blacks didn't vote. Come on. See how you make the difference? You're making a difference already. You're thinking about what I'm saying. Come on, you can vote early, and we're pushing that you get out there and vote. It's so essential. Now, I'm going to introduce some of my guests. My guests are going to come on right now. I want to introduce, first of all, this young lady is all the way from the West Coast, and she's still daylight out there where she is, and she's loving it out there in Southern California. But she's a powerful woman of God. I'm telling you, she's my God sister, and she's a special lady. I'm so glad that she had a great relationship with my mom, and that's how I got to have a relationship with her. Mostly because she and my mom had this inseparable bond, and we talked about it even on yesterday. And she is just a great woman of God. She's a chairlady for the youth department for Southern California First Jurisdiction. And she's a grad from Howard University. She also hosts her own Instagram show called Tuesdays with Tiffany, which I will be on when we get off of this show. All around wonderful lady. She's passionate about educating young people, and she's a beautiful, beautiful young lady. We welcome missionary Tiffany Glover. Hey, Tiffany, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. I didn't know. I mean, I just thought of it yesterday when you asked me to come on your show, but why couldn't you come on my show and we talk some more? We just keep talking. Now, I want Tiffany to come large. I'm going to introduce my other guests in just a second. Come on, give me Tiffany big so she can hear and see what's going on. Yeah. Listen, Tiffany, tell me something. How's it going out there in Southern California?
You did speak to the weather, so it's very warm. Oh, and with that being said, COVID is, doing its COVID thing. Yeah. But in the midst of this crisis, this pandemic crisis, we have a crisis to get out and vote. And like the statistics that you said, we're not doing it. We're not taking it as seriously as we should. And that's why I'm happy that you invited me on and that you're coming on my show, because this is a national thing. It has to go from coast to coast and really stand on the importance of using our voice as a way to protest and get out there and make change. So there's a lot of things going on: voter suppression, fake ballot bins that are popping up. Someone tried to put one on fire. So
Tiffany, what's going on out there?
What's going on? Hey,
they're trying to suppress the vote. They're trying to. All you got to do is listen to those statistics I gave you. And there's an effort out there trying to suppress your vote, because your vote will make the difference. Mm-hmm. And if they get you to say, forget it, I don't need to do it, it's not going to matter anyway, which is the common cliches or common excuses that are used, then you're not going to go out there. You're not going to do anything. And we get what we get. But my thing is this, Tiffany. If you don't vote, don't talk.
That's true.
Okay?
That's true.
Come on now. If you haven't made an effort to make something happen, then, I mean, how can we affect change in our communities? Because we're talking about voting, and most of the time, and the hype is about the presidential election. But there are other levels of voting that need to happen in order for us to make a difference. And the thing you can do most of all is vote right in your community there. I mean, just go vote for your mayor or for your city council or, your state reps. Go ahead.
It matters the most, because California, we're very concentrated. So there's a lot. We're kind of on top of each other, and people don't really understand the importance of the local vote, but it's so important, even when you think of something as small as parking and parking tickets. There's a young person that is within my jurisdiction. He recently moved here, trying to live the California Hollywood dream. Mm-hmm. He paid more in parking tickets than he did in rent.
What?
Yes. I think he told me he got $8,000 worth of parking tickets. Okay.
He needs to come back. Where is he from? He needs to come back.
He's from Baltimore. So
my goodness.
Yeah, and who's making those decisions? Who is saying, this particular zone needs to be, you need to have a permit? Who's doing that? And that's where your vote really does matter. Yeah. Even those small things,
Right. Listen, we're gonna continue this. I'm gonna keep you on, but I'm gonna bring in somebody you know very well, and he's my dear uncle. And
my uncle too.
Yeah, your uncle too. My bad. Yeah, I want to bring him in because he's just an all-around wonderful guy. I never, next to my dad, this is my man. Next to my dad now, that's saying a lot. Let me just put that out there. That is saying a lot. If I'm putting this man next to my dad is the man. God. Okay, so my uncle Otis, he's Deacon Otis Sheard, and he is a former chemist for the Ford Motor Company, and he is, let me see, I got some other stuff written down. He is the owner operator Sheard Realty, of course, in Detroit for more than 35 years, and I'm telling you, he's a tremendous man of God, chairman of our deacon board at Greater Mitchell, a devoted family man. And I'm telling you, he's one of the greatest individuals you ever want to meet. You don't ever have to worry about anything when you're around Uncle Otis, because he's going to give it to you straight. He's not going to lie to you, and he's going to care. He's going to keep you and care for you and show compassion for you. Would you welcome my dear Uncle Otis? Come on, everybody out there, clap for Uncle Otis.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a pleasure being on, and thank you for having me. This thing of voting, and all of you, Tiffany, and all of you, this thing of voting is a very serious thing. And these statistics that you brought up, particularly the one in Detroit where the 11,000 deficit was, and there were, I think you said 277,000 Black voters that didn't vote, that probably was approximately, I would say 50% of the voters didn't vote in that election. You know, that's a ridiculous statistic. However, I think that my generation, I'm not including Sister Tiffany in this,
no.
but my generation is responsible for that, I believe. I think we've neglected or refused to make it vivid in the minds of our young people how important the vote is, and how did they come about having this right, this privilege of voting, and how many people's lives were given and damaged and beaten so that they could vote. I think we didn't do a very good job of relaying this to them. And you know, one of the recent elections, I rushed out to vote, and I looked back at the back of the line, and I saw my daughter in the line. That did something to me inside.
That's good.
There's Kimberly back there.
Good.
I tried to instill in them the importance of voting. You know, the way I look at voting the way when I was in corporate setup, the way I looked at racial discrimination. I said, you know, racial discrimination is a big fire that exists in this country, in this world, but particularly in this country. And I think each of us is given a cup of water. If you can think with me for a moment.
Come on.
You go around with a cup of water in your hand. This big fire exists. You have got to take advantage of every opportunity to throw every drop of that cup on that big fire. You can't back off and say this little cup of water won't do anything for that big fire. You are copping out then. You've got to throw every drop of that water on that big fire. Well, that's the way I look at our election today. That's the way I look at the injustices that's going on in this country now. Don't cop out. 277 voters in Detroit copped out, and that's why we're in the condition we're in right now in the country. They said our vote is not important. Somewhere along the line, their parents or somebody didn't communicate to them how they got the right. What happened in 1962? When they went out in the driveway of this great American who had served in World War II. The man who fought in Germany and in France, came back to the country he was fighting for, and they killed him in his driveway. He was only trying to get people to vote.
Right.
His brother had tried to vote earlier, and they dedicated themselves to voter registration. I knew the man. He pulled me down the street in my wagon in Mount Bayou, Mississippi. Now, the history doesn't indicate that he pulled me down the street in my wagon,
right.
Nor that he was in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, but will tell you that he was an insurance salesman. Well, he was an insurance salesman in Mount Bayou, Mississippi for Magnolia Mutual Insurance Company. That's when I met him. So the man was an American hero when they killed him and shot him down in the back. So somebody needed to communicate to these youngsters, particularly under 35. How did you get to where you are now? It wasn't automatic. How did you get to the lunch counters that you go to now? How did you get to go to the hotels that you go to now? Somebody died. Somebody was beaten. John Lewis was beat across the head. Medgar Evers, my hero, was killed. He was one of the nicest guys you ever met in his life, but he had an aura about him that was so sincere. He'd come to St. Mark in Mount Bayou and sit up on the front seat and just cry. He had a heaviness for this voter registration thing. And if you go look at his pictures now, all of the pictures you see of Medgar, you will very seldom see him like grinning.
That's right.
There's a solemn, sincere look about him.
That's right.
It was heavy on him. And of course, he died a young man, 37 years old.
Right.
But we got to recall and remember what people went through
Mm-hmm.
back in those days. I remember your Uncle Alfie, when he came out of the Marines, he was on a Greyhound bus in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
The guy asked him to move from the front seat, had been fighting for his country. The man asked him to move from the front seat. He said he made up in his mind that day that he was going to die. And he think that the bus driver looked in his eyes and recognized that he might kill him.
Right.
But these are the kind of things that went on in the South. And that's how we got the Civil Rights Bill, John Kennedy, as a result of Medgar Evers' death about voter registration. That's how we got to where we are now.
Yeah.
And it's so unjust and unjust, and it's so dishonoring to these people to just casually sit back and say, "Well, my vote doesn't mean anything."
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Right.
You got to go vote. That's the way I feel about it, Superintendent.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I'm glad you. I was going to bring that in about Medgar Evers, but you brought it in beautifully. And this is somebody that experienced some of these civil rights leaders, and he's a wealth of information. I'm going to hold you right there because I want to bring in our third guest, Miss Kim Trent. She's coming in now, and she is somebody to be reckoned with. Kim Trent has both her bachelor's and master's degree from Wayne State University, and she worked for the Detroit News some years ago. She also worked for former U.S. Rep. Carolyn Cheeks Kilpatrick back in '97, and worked for Senator Debbie Stabenow. But right now, she's a deputy director for labor and economic opportunity for our current governor, Big Gretch, Governor Whitmer. And we love Governor Whitmer. Let me just say that. Welcome to the show, Miss Trent. How are you?
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you, Superintendent. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I just have to say amen to Deacon Sheard. I mean,
Right.
he just preached a word right there. That was amazing. I love that history. And we need that history in the context of what's happening today. We as African Americans, it's so easy for us to think the current condition we're in is just something that we're owed, and we are owed it, by the way, because we're American citizens, but it's something that can't be taken away. But we need to remember, in Reconstruction, Black men had the right to vote.
That's right.
We had Blanche Bruce, we had Hiram Revels, who were United States senators in the 19th century.
Yeah.
That's right.
Came along Jim Crow to suppress our vote. And we're seeing, unfortunately, in our history, you've seen in this country, we have had these horrible swings from moving towards our fulfillment and empowerment to having it taken away. And we now are in a place, we're at a very precarious place in history. And the idea that voting doesn't matter is just so antithetical to history. The sacrifice you talk about with Medgar Evers, we don't even have to go all the way to Mississippi. We have it from right near where your wonderful church is on the north side of Detroit via Uzo, who was a student. I used to be on the board at Wayne State University. One of the best things I did when I was on that board was honoring her, because so many people have no idea that a white woman from Michigan is the only white woman who died in the modern civil rights movement. She died in Selma. She was murdered by the KKK. A few weeks later, the United States Congress passed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And a lot of the reason why is because white people, for the first time, I mean, they were seeing these terrible attacks. They saw John Lewis being attacked on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They saw, water hoses and dogs being turned on us. But this white woman's death really, it changed minds. That's when Congress said, because the Voting Rights Act had been pending for a while, people were skeptical. They didn't know if they wanted to go forward with it. And it passed almost immediately after she died. And so we have murders right here in our community. We cannot ignore their sacrifice. And it's not, more importantly, we can't ignore what we're going to sacrifice if we don't vote.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times people think that's ancient history, but if you look at history, you see this is a constant fight. We've been in this country for 401 years. We've never had the full rights of citizenship that we're owed. Everything we've gotten, we had to fight for with blood, sweat, and tears. And a vote is just such a little sacrifice to make.
Right.
People who put their literal lives on the line.
That's fantastic, and you know I can't do anything but agree with you. But let me say this real. I want to just pause real quick because I want to acknowledge my pastor. My pastor is Bishop John H. Sheard. He's my father, and he's a great man of God. I didn't mention him earlier because I came on just on fire, but you know I know protocol and I know what I should do. But my dad is a tremendous man of God. We call him the miracle man for a reason. There's a trilogy of death-defying events that have happened in his life, and we thank God for him because he's continuing to recover. He's getting stronger and stronger, and we think he's preaching again on the internet. We thank God for him. He's doing a tremendous job. He's you know lost a little weight, but that's even coming back. So we thank God for him. And the Greater Mitchell Temple Church of God in Christ, that's my home church. I just thank him so much for indulging me for all of that time until Bishop came back. But we're in a great place. We haven't stopped praying. We're praying for everybody because we don't want you to do bad. We want you to have the favor of God over your life. Amen. And if you do right, you'll be all right. Pastor teaches us that all the time. Now let's go back to this. I want to just say there are some things at stake in this election. And one of the things that is happening is the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare. You know that there's no substitute being provided. I mean, I just want to take the blinders off for a minute. Now, you know, I don't necessarily have a problem with them replacing Obamacare, but you can't repeal it or get rid of it without a replacement.
Yeah,
it just doesn't. It just doesn't make that doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah. I mean, you know, they tell us, you know, if you're gonna get a new job, you know. Make sure you got the one you're going to before you leave that one, right? Or you'll be out there with nothing, and that's where we're at. You know, there are things with Obamacare, and then there are hundreds of thousands. I got to say this because my mom was a victim with this COVID-19. Hundreds of thousands of victims, and it could have been theoretically the amount of deaths could have been prevented with the proper attention given to it. And then, you know, then I don't want us to forget, you know, it's kind of subsided because of the election cycles coming on. But, you know, don't forget George Floyd. Don't forget George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland. Don't forget these people. These people are now dead because we're not making any moves anywhere. We're just allowing stuff to happen. Now they protested. The protests are even kind of died down because of the election cycle. But we can't let this stuff go away. Just like we keep saying, don't stop praying. We got to keep up with what's going on so we can get all the way through. I just don't want my foot in the door. I want my whole body in the door. And the only way I get that is I participate in what's available. You know, it's hard. You know, it came to mind. You know, and maybe you don't like this story, whatever. But the story was, if you got your receipts, this is more of a story. If you got your receipts, you know, you don't even have to argue.
That's true.
I went to court one time, landlord-tenant situation, and the person said they paid their rent, and I didn't even have to say a word. The judge said, okay, show me your receipts. She said, oh, well, It was like, get out of here, basically. Well, if you got your receipts, you can go. Go ahead, Tim. You want to say something?
You know that is because I'm in a different generation than you. but that is a generational slang. Keep your receipts. Do you have receipts? Yes. And our receipt is the vote. So whether or not it's in court of law or if it's just a throw some shade, you want to make sure that you definitely want to make sure that you have yours. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now listen, I want to say this. I'm sorry, Ms. Trent. I'm gonna just keep going. You guys jump in, but I got to go over we're talking about the importance of voting, but I got to talk about how to vote because everybody's thinking I got to go on November 3rd. Why are they talking so much? I'm going on November 3rd. I don't want you to go on November 3rd. I want you to go now. I want you to go early. Vote early. Don't wait. Make sure your vote is there already when election day comes around. Voting early has begun in over 31 states around the country, so you have no excuse. There are over 30 million votes that have already been cast. It's so very important for us to get out there. People are listening. They're going early. They're sending their ballots in. Now, listen, there are two ways to vote early. You can do absentee ballot. Now, listen, I'm going to have to go over this because I want to explain this to you because I don't want anybody to make a mistake. You know, the worst feeling I had in the world is when I made a mistake on something that was very important. You know that empty feeling you get in your stomach and you say, oh. And you can't get it back? Like when you stick something in the mailbox, you know you can't get it back. So I want you to understand, you cannot vote, you cannot mail in vote anymore. It's over. If you have an absentee ballot right now, you have to take it to the clerk's office. Take it to the drop box. And listen, this is my thing. While there are drop boxes around the city in Detroit, I'm just talking about Detroit right now, but there are numerous drop boxes around the country in different various places. Be safe and take it to the clerk's office because in California, they burn in the ballot box. Come on. So let's when they do one thing, we do one thing. You're not going to stop me. You're not going to stop me. If my shoe comes out, I'm going to go with one shoe. But listen, when you leave the house,
Superintendent,
go ahead.
That's like if you've lost a bill or something in the mail. The next few weeks, I make it a point when I'm mailing it, I take it to the post office then.
Right.
And you get a tracking number too. I think there's ways that we could track the ballots. Make sure that
track your ballot. You can do that too. All of that's there. But it's important that you take it to the clerk's office. Now, we got our clerk's office downtown or midtown anyway. But go to the clerk's office. It's not too late to go. As a matter of fact, hurry and go down and place your vote. Now, if you go in person.
And Superintendent, can I just mention, there are actually a lot of satellite. You don't actually have to go on the boulevard in Detroit. There are satellite locations. So if you go to City Clerk Janice Winfrey's website, I live in downtown Detroit. I live right 3 blocks away from the Coleman Young Center. They have been voting there. They have been voting in a number of different places. But I totally agree with you. Do not wait until November 3rd to vote. Don't have the policy to win, so they're going to try to suppress the vote. That's just for a long time. So we've got to be on defense. And I totally agree with you. Vote in person, but vote early.
Vote early. Listen.
I could definitely have to be on defense.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. We definitely have to be on defense. Just look what's happening as far as the Supreme Court judge. It's like they're already stacking and positioning themselves to quote unquote take the election. I think my very first year was after campaign 2000 when they had the Chad in Florida and they didn't do the recount. So all those things matter. And then one other statistic I want to bring up. I know we were talking about African Americans and how a lot of us and a lot of our ancestors, they shed their blood for the right to vote as a race. But we have to remember, it was just in 1920 that women got the right to vote. So to stand here as the independent woman, here we are. Yes, young women, we have to vote. There's so much on the table. You even have things like whether or not they want to defund parent planning. We think it's all about abortion, but young ladies are able to get more aid than just an abortion. They're able to get checks, things that they won't normally get, and they want to have that privacy to take care of what's going on as far as their women reproduction organs are concerned. African American women, as far as healthcare is concerned, that's just such a missing part. We have so many women that are getting hysterectomies unnecessarily because they're not taking the time to understand the African American woman and what she needs.
And if I could just piggyback on what you were saying, Tiffany, talking about this new Supreme Court nominee, Amy Coney Barrett, one of the things that she was asked about in her hearing was whether she thought voter intimidation was illegal. She declined to answer that question.
What?
Yes, she did. Yes,
she declined to answer the question. So I think the fact that she didn't answer the question answers the question for us.
The question, yeah.
I'm talking about someone who has a 99.9% chance of being appointed to the Supreme Court, who's a relatively young woman who's going to be on the court for a really long time. And so those are the decisions. We're not just making a decision about the president or a U.S. senator. We're making that court play is that long play. That so much of the advances that we've had, so much of the things that have helped people of color live with dignity in this country, because we had to be granted it in a courtroom rather than it just being something that is imbued with our constitutional rights. Because it should be, but we know that has not been the practice. So it is so important for us to remember we're not just voting for one guy.
Yeah,
we're voting for a third of the federal judiciary right now has been appointed by Donald J. Trump.
Absolutely.
Again, lifetime appointments.
That's right.
So we just have to be cognizant of that and what that means for our children's future.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And the Affordable Care Act will be gone.
Yeah.
She gets on there. And as you say, it's apparent that she's going to get on there. So I think it's very important that in this election, regardless of the lead that Mr. Biden has, I pray to God that this election is a landslide, so that it can't be any. The little trickery that they introduced, it will just be no doubt who won the election, because if so, with the majority of his justices on the Supreme Court, it's no telling what will happen there. You might end up having a president 2 years later and it being him.
Well, and Deacon, you're 100% right. And the president has already said that is the play. The play is going to be tight, and then I'm going to go. This is a man who is not afraid to go into a courtroom. He's sued and been sued by literally thousands of people. So this is a person who will be litigious until the very end. The only hope that we have is a huge margin so that the Republicans, who still have power, even though they don't choose to use it with this president, will not be, cowed into letting foolishness ensue. If there's an overwhelming majority, there's no way that this president can, even with the Supreme Court majority, we do have a democracy. We're holding on to it by a thread, but we do still have one.
Right. Yeah, we got, go ahead.
And definitely Deacon Otis, he said it. He said we were praying for a landslide, but we have to guarantee it's a landslide. And it's looking that way, but we have to remember 4 years ago it looked that way too.
It did look good.
That Hillary was going to win by a landslide. There's no way we're going to put a reality TV show host.
We did it.
And that's the point. That point right there is what I'm
for granted. People didn't vote, so we can't take that for granted. We can't just assume, hey, it's not going to happen again. It even happened when Bush Jr., when the second Bush, during that election. It was right after 9/11. Everyone knew there's no way they're going to vote him back in, but they did. Right. So we cannot take that for granted, especially from a Black woman standpoint. No way.
Hey, go ahead, Dee.
Well, that the point you just made there, I blame all of that on Al Gore. When Al Gore refused to pull Mr. Clinton up because he labeled him as a negative campaign. If he hadn't done that, Bush wouldn't have ever got back in. But back to this thing of the last election, they have not clearly, in my opinion, clarified the impact of the Russians on our election.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you don't clarify and identify something, the risk is always there for it repeating itself. Right. So I just hope to God that whatever they did, they can't do it again. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. No,
because
I
they
agree.
did something,
Yeah, I agree. Listen,
I would just caution your viewers, because one of the things that we know that they did was infiltrate our social media.
Yeah.
People just have to be so careful about not just passing along. If it sounds crazy or sounds illogical, don't share it.
Right.
Don't share stuff that just common sense would tell you it can't be true. But because it's provocative, because they like to be hood CNN or whatever, they have to pass it along. But I think it's so important for 2 weeks out from this election, don't be a Russian asset. Don't pass along information that is clearly wrong.
That's right. That's right. Listen, let me tell you this real quick, because when we go to the vote in person, it's important that when we leave the house, put your mask on.
Yes.
Come on, man. Come on. What are we doing? What are we doing? Listening to people, and there are 220,000 deaths and counting.
And counting.
And all we have to do, always say, you know, you might feel good, but we're doing it for our neighbor. The Bible teaches us to do unto others as we would have them do unto us. And I would want somebody to protect me. So why not do it for your neighbor? I mean, it's just that. I mean, come on, man. Why are we having this debate about protecting? It's like wearing a seatbelt. You gotta wear it. It's a law. Put the seatbelt on. You know, you might not need the seatbelt. You know, my dad used to teach driving instruction. He was driving training. He taught me how to drive. He said that you have to drive for everybody else. Right. You might be a great driver. I mean, my daughter wants to go someplace. I say, man, no, you're not going. Well, why am I saying no? It's not because I don't trust her. It's because I don't trust the other people. And so my responsibility is to keep her safe. The seatbelt will keep you safe, whether you want to be safe or not. And then why does it have to be that you have to get in a terrible car accident? And then now you're a witness to a seatbelt. Oh, the seatbelt saved me. Why do we have to do that? Why can't we just do stuff that's logical? Now, every time I get sick, every time I've ever gotten sick, okay, to the point where I couldn't take some soup or some aspirin, I went where? To the doctor. The doctor is the guy that we trust with our health. If the doctor tells us to take 2 of these every day for the next 30 days, we take them because we believe in the doctor. Right. Why all of a sudden are we doctors and we saying the virus goes right through the mat? That's not what the doctor said.
Right.
Come on, man. 220,000 deaths and counting. So
that's one of the consequences of that 2016 election is the degradation of authority. People don't trust people in authority anymore. And then we have people who are in authority who are adding to that distrust. That's right. So what we have is people who are skeptical about things that are apparent, that are obvious, that have been proved. There are other countries that licked COVID-19. There are other
New Zealand
they kept promising we were going to have this dip. It never happened in this country because of the leadership that we have.
That's right.
It's sad. Superintendent, I want to extend my condolences for the loss of your mother. I lost a 22-year-old cousin. And so many friends. I just stopped counting because it became so depressing to even count how many people I know who we've lost to this horrible thing. Every time I hear this man, make these statements like it's a hoax or we're sick of talking about it. You're talking about people who lost people who were precious to them. It's so heartless. It's so wrong. It's so morally wrong. And I cannot understand. I can't understand people who profess Christ who would say this is the person they want to lead them. I don't get it.
Come on, Kim.
As a Christian, I don't understand it. It's just so antithetical to everything I know about Christianity.
That's right. That's right.
You said the key word, profess Christ.
Yeah.
They profess Christ.
Yeah.
They don't
listen, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't know. Well, when I had COVID as well. And I had it early on back in, I guess it was March, when it was like starting to spike, I caught it, and I didn't know I had it. And this is the thing, I didn't know I had it until I couldn't breathe, and my temperature was 104. And I'm going, wow. But even then, we went to the doctor, and the doctor, they gave us medicine. Well, I don't even know what they gave me, to be honest with you. I was just taking it because that's what they said to do. I was taking it. I trust the doctor. When I got home, I'm gonna tell you something. My wife took care of me so well. I cannot stress it enough. When she took care of me, she wore a mask.
Yes, sir.
The whole time. She had gloves on. She wouldn't let me touch nothing. She said, "Get over there and sit down." I couldn't move. I was just trying to take my dishes to the, the kitchen. She said, don't stop, give them to me, go back. I mean, it was that serious because of how it has devastated so many people. Yeah. And all I'm saying is, let's err on the side of caution. And it won't be like this always. We won't be wearing masks in another, it'll take a while, but we won't be wearing masks for the rest of our lives. But it's a period where we got to go through. Once we get through here, we can look back and say how we got over. But we don't want to be the ones that are irresponsible. It won't just put on a mask, stay 6 feet away. I mean, it's not that difficult. We're longing for the days to be able to hug our neighbors and kiss and fellowship and all of that. But you got to wear your mask when you go out, and you got to wash your hands repeatedly. It's very important. Listen, I'm going to put a couple more things up on when you leave the home. Okay, listen. When you're voting, this is important. Go to ballotpedia.com/early voting. On that website, you'll be able to download a ballot of what will be on the ballot for your area. Whatever state you're in, you can go there. When you go there, get your ballot, download, print it off, and then make your selections. I'm helping you here while you're at home. And then read your proposals, study them. If you need help on your proposals, call somebody and ask them, what should I do? What does this mean? And then do your homework at home so that when you have to go in person and take that in, you can go stand in line and it'll make it go faster, because once you get to the ballot box, you're going boom, 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 and you're done. And that makes it, listen, there we go again. We putting on the mask to look out for our neighbors. We also doing our homework ahead of time with all our sheet. You can take that sheet in with you, and you're looking out for your people standing in line, because this is one thing you don't want to have. You don't want somebody to get discouraged about standing in line to vote and then don't vote. We just don't want that. We want to make it as convenient for everybody as possible. And that's one of the ways to do it. Just write your stuff down ahead of time, so when you go in, you're all set. You go boom, boom, boom. You're out of there, and then you can, wave it. Don't touch anybody. Just wave and say hi and tell them you love them. Listen, we got it. Go ahead, Tiff.
I like to add one more thing. I like to add one thing. When it comes down to that, I like to compare it to smoking. In California, you cannot smoke, and it's a non-smoking state. And we compare that to that because we don't want secondhand smoke to impact people, a non-smoker. So that's how I think about that. And then I don't know if you're going to flow into this, but as far as proposition and proposals, it's super important that you do your homework. They're written in a confusing way.
Right.
I was talking to someone because we have one Proposition 21 here in California that's about housing and how they're doing justification in a lot of our inner cities and spiking up the rent. So it's really important that we understand who's funding those propositions. Like, even if you don't understand the language, look who's funding them. Like, if it's something on prison reform, if it's something on like how much you're going to pay for bail, look who's funding that. If you notice that a big corporate has a big corporate funder, take a second to say, are they actually looking out for me, the common person, or are they looking out for the deep pockets? So those are just simple things that can kind of help you get on the right track when it comes down to your various different propositions and proposals.
Ms. Trent, did you want to say something?
I just totally agree. And, I think, again, because there's so much emphasis on this presidential race and maybe a little bit on the U.S. Senate race, I think your advice to do some investigation before you go to the polls is so important, because as I mentioned, I was an elected member of the Wayne State University Board of Governors. The board of University of Michigan is elected, the board of Michigan State. If you've been watching the newspaper, all three of those universities have been in the news, not always good
right.
things. And we have the power to decide who's on that board, who's on those boards. So it's at the very bottom of the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
To be so passionate about, as you were saying, Tiffany, knowing those proposals, who put those proposals up, so because one of the tricks that people have come up with is they put titles up that sound really good. I remember I was on the affirmative action campaign in 2006, and they had a title. You would think you were going in to vote for affirmative action. You were going in to eliminate affirmative action.
Right.
but they knew with the right title, they could get people to vote who typically wouldn't have voted for that legislation or for that ballot proposal. So I just think it's so important that we do that. And I'm so glad for this service that you're offering today so that we can have these conversations, 2 weeks out, and you're giving people these great resources. So, congratulations for that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken. Come on, Deacon Otis. Did I see you?
One of your guests earlier had, and I don't remember his name, but he was offering to pick up people who couldn't get to the polls on voting.
Oh, yes. Roll to the polls. That's Medvis Jackson. Yeah.
Yes.
I think we got his information on here. There it is, right there. Roll to the polls. You can call that number, and we'll schedule a way for you to get to the polls. Go ahead, Deacon. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's just a great idea and a great setup, and all of us, if we are able to do it, should volunteer ourselves to help somebody get there if they can't get there.
Absolutely. Listen, we are, and I want to stress this as well. We cannot let down. We cannot, get tired. We got to go until we get what we need to get. Listen, every level of government we're voting on, every level, and you cannot just one thing. I don't, they got it on the ballot where you can vote all straight Democrat or straight Republican. I don't do that because I want to put my pencil right on who I want. I want to know I see your name and I'm filling in your circle. So don't, I'm not saying you can't do that, but I'm just saying let's be sure about what we're doing so we'll be confident what's going on. We don't want all this it's so much nonsense. I mean, just to hear on CNN, my dad watches CNN all day, all night, okay? And so he knows what's going on. And this is the thing, to hear the disparaging comments against these health officials that are, they have been around for 50 years serving, the country and the world. I mean, and now, these disparaging comments, just trying to knock them down and then using his words when it's convenient for you to help you think. And, oh, man, I hate to talk. I don't want to talk about, that. But we're not crazy. You're not crazy. Yeah. Come on.
Expert.
Some people are.
Some people are. I don't get it. So I'm just trying to, I want to pull it together. So we are not just out there and then, because I'm going to tell you, 4 years ago, I voted, but I still thought there was no way we would be in this position. I just didn't. I didn't think, I'm going to be honest, excuse me, ladies, for this. I didn't think, I thought that the country was a little uneasy about now having a woman president. I thought that was an issue, but I still didn't think it was much of an issue for us to get what we got. Okay.
Well, the polls showed that Hillary was going to be president.
Yeah.
And when I left church that night, I was probably the most disappointed man in America. I heard that news, my whole spirit just dropped.
It was a bad day. So I mean, we just, we got to pray for him still. Okay, I'm going this place for you. So we still got to pray for him, but we want to pray that the Lord touches his mind, that he would get the help that he needs, because I'm gonna be honest with you, he's a little unstable, and so he's just unstable. And I think that with a little prayer, and everybody can get saved. Everybody can get saved.
Everybody.
And I'm not making a joke or I'm kidding. I believe everybody can get saved.
And renew his mind. He needs his mind to be renewed.
Absolutely.
And his heart.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we want to move. Okay, I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to say that. Y'all forgive me. I'm not supposed to say that.
Just vote.
Just vote. Now, there's a place you can go to find out all the locations, whatever country, whatever city or state you're in. You can go to iwillvote.com. On iwillvote.com, there it is on your screen. You can go there and it'll give you information about where your polling places are, how many drop boxes around, and I think it'll do some registration for you as well. But you go there and it'll tell you what to do. You know, I love the fact that I have the right to vote, and my ancestors, predecessors, they did what they had to do, which, you know, I don't know, you know, I'm not sure we got the same kind of whatever, but our predecessors were vehement about we got to get our rights. Because let me tell you this, even at young ages, they were thinking about the future all the time. They weren't just thinking about their present. They were thinking about the future. And in doing so, they were willing to risk their lives. Because let me tell you, I watched these, you know, some of these documentaries and movies and whatever, and they're really unsettling the way that our people were treated. And for nothing. I mean, and just barbaric. And I'm going, why? And it's just because they can. And so now that they can't anymore, okay, do this. You got to do something. Come on, you got it in your hand. Vote. Go. Let me see. Where's my pen? Go vote. You got to go vote.
Deacon Shear talked about, you know, having grown up, knowing Medgar Evers when Medgar Evers was, you know, leading. And I've often wondered, because I kind of was born after the civil rights movement, but I've often wondered, what would I do? Everybody thinks, oh, I would have been marching with King, and I would have. But actually, when you really look at history, it was a small percentage of people who actually did the work. That's always. That's right. So, but I think that this is our opportunity to answer that question for ourselves. And when we were talking earlier this summer about, you know, when COVID was just unchecked and there was, you know, we still don't have any federal leadership on it. But when we were faced with the prospect of possibly having to risk our lives to go to the polls, when people were talking about that, I was willing to risk my life to go to the polls, even though I knew I worked on the Promote the Vote campaign 2 years ago. So I know, thank goodness, here in the state of Michigan, we have early voting. We have no reason absentee voting. We have registration until the day of the election. You can actually register to vote on election day. That's one thing. That's a new innovation that we have. But even with all those, if we didn't have those things, I would be in somebody's line with a picnic basket. I would stay as long as I had to. I would have my mask and hope that people would respect those boundaries. But I was willing to, because it's not for me, it's for my child.
That's right.
Live in this world. You know, right. I don't know how long my days are going to be. Hopefully I have many more, but I have to look for my grandchildren who are yet born. And I am willing to die for this time because it's that important.
That important. Go ahead, Deke. I'm sorry.
So Trent, Medgar Evers actually made a statement that he would be willing to die so that his children would live better. Yeah. He actually made that statement. And that's the way we got to feel, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, let me give you, go ahead, Tiff, I'm sorry.
Oh, we have to honor those lives. We can't take that for granted. Those are, you know, that's our vote, our ballots have blood stains on them. So we have to do our part to really live up to that. And one last thing, I believe it was Jesse Jackson, he said, to the Black community, that these hands once cotton now have the power to pick presidents. Think about that. You know, we were less than citizens at one point 400 years ago. Now we have the right to pick presidents. So that's huge.
Wow. It's huge.
Powerful statement, Tiffany. And I think particularly when you look at Black women, you know, one thing that a lot of people don't know, the first woman who voted in Michigan was a Black woman from Detroit.
Oh, wow.
1871. Her name was Nanette Gardner. So 1871, when women kind of, if you were a property owner, you could vote. And we didn't have any restrictions for race at the time. So we have her. And then, you know, I hope you were talking about CNN. I just saw that this story has gone national now about Mildred Madison here in Detroit, who is living in Chicago right now with her son, but she is a longtime Detroiter. didn't get her ballot in what she thought was enough time, and she's 94 years old, had her son drive her from Chicago, Illinois to Detroit just so she could cast her vote.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Your old woman can get in the car for 200 miles to make sure her vote is counted. What is going down the street and doing it?
Actually, last Sunday, my grandfather, he's 95. He is a 95-year-old World War II veteran, Purple Heart in the Navy.
Wow.
I went up, and he's actually at the VA hospital in West Hollywood. And so I went up and I said, "Are you ready to vote?" And he woke up and he started dancing. The nurse is like, "You're making him so happy." I said, "Because he's voting." And at that moment, he appreciated it. You know, I think his heart monitor, his things were going crazy because he was so happy to vote. So if it was important, it's still important for him. So that's why I do what I do, thinking about my grandfather and going all the way back, thinking about my godmother. That's why I stand very firm on the importance of raising our voice in this way. Fantastic.
Listen, we got to close out, but I don't want to leave you without giving you these stats again. You got to get these stats because it needs to be ingrained in your mind how much of a difference it made. Look at these stats. In 2016 presidential election, by the number in Michigan, the difference between the two candidates was 11,000 votes. 11,000 votes. And let me just add to that. When we had a governor, our former governor, Snyder, you know, he got to be the governor, but he never even came to Detroit to campaign because he knew that the Detroiters weren't going to vote.
Wouldn't vote.
He knew they weren't going to vote. So he didn't even waste his time. So now here we are. The difference between the two candidates in Michigan was 11,000 votes. And in Detroit alone, 277,000 blacks didn't vote. So we can't do that anymore. Listen, in Florida, 113,000 vote difference. In Miami alone, 379,000 black people didn't vote. In Pennsylvania, which they're talking about Pennsylvania every day now on the news, the difference was 44,000 votes between the two candidates in Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia alone, 238,000 blacks didn't vote. Come on, y'all. And in Georgia, where they say it's always red, well, I guess so. Look here. The difference in Georgia was 211,000 votes. And in Atlanta, ATL, I'm calling you out, ATL. I'm calling you out. ATL, 530,000 blacks didn't vote in Atlanta. And it made the difference, obviously. I'm telling you, you make a difference in your voting. I want to encourage you. There's some friends, Brother Burt Gaddis, who's a great friend of mine, been friends for 40 years, and Brother Chris Howie and Brother Lewis Cox and Brother Ralph Watts, who just had a birthday the other day. These are my friends, and we've been friends for 40 years or better. And I'm telling you, they've encouraged me over the years. I've encouraged them, but I've got the platform now, and they sent me messages on today encouraging me during this program. And I just want to shout out to them because they're pushing for this vote as well. Everybody's doing their part. And again, if you have a car and you can help somebody get to the polls, don't be afraid to do that. They're putting this on the screen for me, ballotpedia.com for early voting. You can find out where you can go and how you can early vote. And then iwillvote.com will tell you the places around the country where you can go and vote. And I want to encourage you that when you leave the house, put your mask on and do your social distancing. Don't let anything stop you from voting. This is so essential to your being. And somebody made a sign, and I got it in my yard right now. It says, "Vote like your life depends on it." Absolutely. And if you value your life, you should value your vote the same way. God bless all of you. I love my god sister Tiffany. I love my uncle Otis, and I love you, Kim Trent.
Superintendent, thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so glad you guys came. We'll look forward to it. We're gonna do this again. I don't know when. Hopefully, we'll do it again after there's some change been made at the top and all the way down, so we can do it again and talk about how essential and how valuable to continue this process is. Thank you again for joining me.
California, you're about to come over.
I'm on my way to Southern California. So if you want to join us on Instagram, Tuesdays with Tiffany, I'm going there in just a couple minutes. So I love you all. And thank you again for joining us. Until next time, may the favor of God be over your life.
All right.